Hello, BookTube. This isn't very sophisticated landscape therapy. No grand vista. And the sound you can hear in the background is probably a farmer washing down one of his vehicles in a nearby car park. But I'm going to have to be really brief today because I think my coffee break video is going to need all the time it can get. So I'll just go quiet, let you have a listen, and then we'll get started.
Hello, BookTube. This video, it probably should be called a tea break, really, rather than a coffee break. I was looking through my photos for something to do with hot beverages, right? And I came across this beautiful picture of T Zane's Tea Room, which is in Broadway in Gloucestershire. And they are a superb place for hot drinks and homemade baked goods. So if you happen to be in the Cotswolds around Cheltenham, definitely look them up. The photos that you will see, they're going to tell a little, very little story, very gentle, simple story, because we're going to be picking up this question: why are some ways of storytelling more valued than others? And it's not an original thought. Some of you probably already know this because Ollie at Criminoli made a fantastic video. He asked the question first. He wondered why novelizations of films, for example, tend to be looked down upon, whereas film adaptations from novels, not so much. And he covered really most forms of storytelling, but Gareth at Books, Songs and Other Magic kind of caught that he hadn't mentioned popular songwriting. And so he made another fantastic video just talking about narrative in songs. And they're both excellent. So I am going to put links in my description box because you really must check those out first. Mine is the third video, right? I am not the originator, I'm not the great creator, but you know, ideas, they spark other ideas, right? I don't have much more to say about film or song or television or games. I am a book creature at heart. I've watched a handful of films. I know some songs, but I don't have anything to add in terms of, I'm going to tell you about more types of storytelling. What I wanted to do was talk about 3 examples. One that relates to theatre and 2 that relate to prose fiction, and see if they couldn't be used to argue a theory, right? So here's the theory. The types of storytelling which society tends to value less or denigrate or even vilify are those which are more democratic. Or, if you'd like, put it another way, the easier it is to access, produce, or distribute a particular form of storytelling, the less it costs, or the less it can be regulated, the more likely it is to be less valued. So, example 1, we're talking about English theatre, Elizabethan and Jacobean theatre versus Restoration theatre in the time of Shakespeare. And for a few decades afterwards, storytelling was a form that was accessible to all levels of society. The cheapest admission to the Globe was a penny, and at that time that was less than the cost of purchasing a simple meal. Plays had to be approved, yes, by a censor, the master of the revels, who, incidentally, in 1581 was an Edmund Tilney. Jane Austen fans will recognize that surname. Tilney's greatest concern was preventing plays from encouraging rebellion or sedition against the Queen or her government. Apart from that, he could be fairly relaxed, or too relaxed anyway, for contemporary Puritans. They felt his concerns did not go far enough. They felt play acting, first of all, was a form of deceit of and by itself. They believed that theatre kept people from spending time in worship, and they were concerned about the forms of entertainment which existed around the theatre. As you can imagine, there would have been gambling, there would have been drinking establishments, there would have been prostitution. And there were also more general concerns that crowded theatres were the places where the bubonic plague could spread. In 1642, of course, the Civil War broke out, all theatres closed, and there were no plays going on at all until King Charles II was restored to the throne. But then theatre changed completely. Theatres themselves, the buildings were smaller, and there was no open space for groundlings. The object of theatre attendance was to be part of a social cachet, to be seen to belong to the king's court, or near enough. You came to display your wealth by paying a higher admission price, but also coming to display your clothing. So theatre ceased to be accessible to all. And the act of seeing a play changed. It became something, therefore, more highbrow and more valued culturally. And it was definitely seen as superior to the new form of storytelling that became popular in the next century when printing became cheap. And that, of course, was the novel. Example 2 is the 19th century novel. Cheap printing, the growth of so many new publishing ventures, serial publication of longer stories, and the emergence of lending libraries. They made novels so accessible as a form of storytelling in the first half of the 19th century. But of course, as reading novels became more and more popular, they got a lot of bad press as being morally damaging. I will leave links to a JSTOR article, a very good one by Michael Munday, titled "The Novel and Its Critics in the Early 19th Century." Here's a typical critique from that article. Quote, "A novel, even of the lowest order, always finds more readers than a serious work, but that it finds readers of a more ductile cast, whose feelings are more easily interested." So the view was that the more popular a novel was, the more it might influence the judgment of these readers of a ductile cast. Some cheaply available stories in the 19th century earned the nickname penny dreadfuls, and they would probably be excellent material for Garb August, if they'd have had that at the time. They came in for particular criticism, but for the same reasons that Shakespeare's plays came under criticism. The fear that the common people would be morally corrupted by what they read. Then, as the 19th century became the 20th, the number of publishing firms gradually reduced. Markets always shrink a little bit after their initial burgeoning. The new forms of storytelling, film and later television, along with popular music, these became the more popular, accessible ways of getting a story fix. And so naturally, they became the new source of worry for pretty much the same reasons that novels and plays had previously been a source of worry. The novel got a cultural boost purely because of this, I think, because these new forms came along, and so the novel, because it was older, began to be regarded as the better way to enjoy your stories. And finally, example 3, self-published internet fiction. By the 21st century, right, we're right up to date with where we are, right? The number of book publishers has shrunk considerably. The book market has shrunk. The number of libraries is reducing. Reading novels now actually costs more money, either because owning books requires expensive technology, like readers, or you need expensive square footage of real estate to store your hard copy books. And that's on top of the cost of the books themselves. So the internet and the invention of handheld devices provided this revolution that was much like the print revolution of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Suddenly, the number of internet publishers was huge because everyone could publish their own work. There was enough free of charge material. Right now I know a lot of people that admit that they don't bother with anything traditionally published. They get all their reading material from what is offered free over the internet. And, of course, we know a lot of online fiction has been compared with Victorian penny dreadfuls, right, being poorly written and sensational. Self-published online fiction, and particularly fan fiction, is regarded as a lower form of storytelling. But if history is anything to go by, we just need to wait. And something will shift, a new storytelling form will emerge, or an old form will just change its audience. And so that's my contribution to this discussion, but there is so much more to be said. I'm really hoping that this question lives on for a little bit in book 2, because I'm sure other people are having thoughts percolating, and I would love to hear them. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the coffee break. I'm working my way through 2 new books, and so I should have a review ready of one kind or another for this weekend. So take care. See everybody soon. Bye-bye.